Hello, everybody. David Shuster here. The bipartisan judicial rebellion against the Trump administration's lawlessness has now been joined by a Trump judge. Judge Carl Nichols, who was appointed by Trump, is the latest to reject administration efforts to shut down a government agency. Here's how the news broke.
A federal judge has just paused the USAID administrative leave. After hearing arguments in Washington, Judge Carl Nichols says he will grant the plaintiff's request for a temporary restraining order or pause.
Nichols once clerked at the U.S. Supreme Court for Clarence Thomas and was named by Donald Trump to the D.C. Federal District Court in 2019. As Politico reports, judge blocks Trump administration from putting 2,200 USAID workers on leave. The decision from U.S. District Judge Carl Nichols, a Trump appointee, is a swift brushback to the administration's attempt to dismantle the agency. Nichols noted that despite Trump's claim of massive corruption and fraud in the agency, government lawyers had no support for that argument in courts. Aside from that assertion, the judge said the administration was unable to explain what harm would befall the government if it could not immediately place on administrative leave the more than 2,000 employees in question. The judge's ruling means that Trump's efforts to shut down USAID have been frozen, at least for now. Soon after that ruling, another federal judge rejected a Trump administration effort involving Guantanamo Bay Prison. AP headline, Court grants request to block detained Venezuelan immigrants from being sent to Guantanamo. The Trump White House has prioritized Venezuelan members of the Tren de Aragua gang for detention at Gitmo, which is outside the United States and outside U.S. legal protections. 3 accused members who say they are not gang members proactively sued to prevent their transfers. U.S. District Judge Kenneth Gonzalez, appointed during the Obama administration, wrote, "The mere uncertainty the government has created surrounding the availability of legal process and counsel access is sufficient to authorize the modest injunction. The order is only short-term, and the legal fight over the transfers will continue." Over the past few days, a third judge, U.S. District Judge Paul Engemeyer, blocked Elon Musk and his government efficiency team from accessing sensitive Department of Treasury records. That Trump administration defeat came after a lawsuit filed by 19 state attorneys general.
What's the premise of your lawsuit?
The premise of the lawsuit is that the law was broken, not just that we may have disagreed with this personally or from a policy standpoint, but that actual specific federal laws were broken. There are federal laws about how privacy is protected with this kind of data, and then there are laws about the process for changing these kinds of rules. We believe both of those sets of laws were broken.
And what are you most opposed to?
The fact that laws were broken. As Attorney General, I told people I was going to be an independent Attorney General, that I was going to do this job in a nonpartisan way. I'm not looking for do I agree or disagree. I'm looking for was the law broken? If so, that's the line. We're going to defend that line.
The latest rulings bring the total number of courtroom defeats to Trump and Elon Musk to at least 10. I say at least 10 because the illegal and unconstitutional Trump executive orders keep coming, and some lawsuits have not yet been officially filed. Altogether, judges ruling against the Trump administration were appointed by Democrats, Republicans, including Trump himself, as we noted, and even Ronald Reagan. The judges have put at least a temporary hold on Trump efforts to freeze federal spending, buy out millions of federal government workers and birthright citizenship, access sensitive Treasury Department records, transfer incarcerated transgender women to men's prisons, and disclose the names of FBI agents who worked on January 6 cases. As the effing news writes, dozens more lawsuits are making their way to courts around the country, filed by non-governmental organizations, unions, aggrieved parties, and Democratic prosecutors. Some of the most recent include challenges to Trump's ban on gender-affirming medical care and some of his anti-immigration measures. With congressional Republicans abandoning their vows to uphold the Constitution, the judiciary remains the only federal impediment to Trump being both unchecked and unbalanced. Aside from the legal arguments, there are also moral and policy arguments against the Trump actions. For example, the Trump effort to shut down USAID contradicts what now Secretary of State Marco Rubio said about the agency a few years ago as a Republican Florida senator.
We don't have to give foreign aid. We do so because it furthers our national interest. That's why we give foreign aid. Now, obviously, there's a component to foreign aid that's humanitarian in scope, and that's important too. I promise you it's going to be a lot harder to recruit someone to anti-Americanism, anti-American terrorism, if the United States of America was the reason why they're even alive today. Anybody who tells you that we can slash foreign aid and that will bring us to balance is lying to you. Foreign aid is less than 1% of our budget. It's just not true.
Trump Senate defender Lindsey Graham has also praised USAID repeatedly, and a few years ago, Graham even delivered this celebration video message to the agency.
Hello everybody, Senator Lindsey Graham here. Happy anniversary to all my friends at USAID. You've made a big difference in the world. You're a force for good. Created a great impression for our country, and you changed lives. You take taxpayer dollars and you improve the lives of others, which is good foreign policy, good national security policy. And to all the folks throughout the world who work for USAID, local hires, thank you. You're a great part of the team. I've been a big champion for a long time. Enjoy this anniversary, and when it comes to USAID, the best is yet to come.
The reason USAID received bipartisan praise and seemed to have a healthy future until Donald Trump is because the agency literally saves lives. And audits show a majority of the USAID money is spent helping people in dire physical or medical condition.
60% of USAID's programming is life-saving humanitarian assistance or global health programming to prevent critical diseases and to help heal and treat people. 60%. And yet these, again, falsehoods about projects that are allegedly going on here or there have come in such a short time to define USAID's reputation, including with Republican supporters of USAID who have stood with the agency over decades, who have seen these programs in the field, who have offered great insight and wisdom about how we can strengthen these programs and make them more cost effective. So it's just really important that the misinformation be put to one side. I know this is easier said than done, and that people remember what USAID is offering the American people and what it has done on behalf of the American people for 6 decades.
And what USAID is offering the American people is improving America's image around the globe. Polls show most Americans support having at least some of their taxpayer dollars used for foreign aid. The polls show that most Americans agree that not only is the aid a moral thing to do, but it keeps America safer. Now, however, we are in the world of Trump. And the only thing keeping the Trump administration from running roughshod over the Constitution and over decisions made by Congress is the justice system. A handful of federal judges, with the number growing by the day, are blocking Donald Trump's early agenda. All the rulings so far are temporary. They prevent the policies from taking effect while the courts consider the legal challenges more fully, and looming over all of them is the U.S. Supreme Court, which is almost certain to have the final say on Trump's unprecedented assertions of executive power.
We're going to see what happens. We have a long way to go, and we're talking about fraud, waste, abuse. And when a president can't look for fraud and waste and abuse, we don't have a country anymore. So we're very disappointed with the judges that would make such a ruling. But we have a long way to go. We have to find all of the fraud that's going on. We have tremendous fraud, tremendous waste, and tremendous abuse, and theft, by the way. And the day you're not allowed to look for theft and fraud, etc., then we don't have much of a country. So no judge should frankly be allowed to make that kind of a decision. It's a disgrace.
Waste, fraud, and abuse in government agencies are usually investigated by an inspector general, but Trump fired at least 17 of them. As for the court rulings, the Trump administration is threatening to ignore those rulings and possibly order federal marshals and the U.S. justice system not to enforce the court decisions. When that moment arrives, America will indeed face a constitutional crisis. Until then, the rule of law and the role of Congress is hanging on thanks to a handful of judges, including one appointed by Donald Trump himself. By the way, polls show a growing number of Republican voters are turning against Elon Musk.
There are places where the government touches people. USAID really isn't one of them. Mm-hmm. But like Social Security, Medicare, VA reimbursements, I mean, there are places where, like that game Operation, to stick with the medical metaphor, like there could be one spot where Musk touches and the nose lights up and people are like, what the hell is this guy doing? And that can have the tendency to cause people to retroactively view this whole period differently, right? It's like you judge it by, here's the screw up, oh my gosh, you look back and you say, this whole thing was a mess, right? And it could be something to do with national security where somebody gets kidnapped, right? We reveal the sources and methods or something. Or it could be something with entitlements, or it could be something with public safety. And presumably they know this, but if their attitude is cut first and fix later, just knowing it and actually doing something about it are two different things.
Check out that video at the link below. It generated a lot of comments on YouTube. One of the most popular is from Ruben, who wrote, "The GOP voted for all of this." I hear you. I look forward to reading your comments about a Trump judge thumping Donald Trump. I'm David Shuster. Thanks for joining us.